Hey everyone, come with me and let me show you how to make this beautiful, impressive pumpkin flavored, pumpkin shaped sourdough bread. Let's get started. So I'm using about 1.5 cups of pumpkin juice. This is from roasted pumpkin, but you can actually make this with some pumpkin puree. We're going to add in a 1/2 cup of sourdough starter. I always use mine unfed because I just like to, and it rises really well. We're going to mix that in until it's nice and creamy. Now you can use your starter at peak, that's totally fine as well. I just find that if you make your bread when it's hungry, it gives you a really nice rise. We're adding in 3.5 cups of bread flour here. And then we're just gonna go ahead and sift that in. And then I'm adding 1 tablespoon of sugar. If you want it on the sweeter side, you can add a little bit more, and about a teaspoon to 1.5 teaspoons of cinnamon, and the same thing with some pumpkin spice. Sourdough will overtake any flavor that you put in, so you kind of want to add extra flavor. And if you want it on the sweeter side, add a little extra sugar. Just be careful because it will rise a lot faster. We're going to go ahead and mix that in until it's nice and incorporated. I set some of my pumpkin juice aside, so this can just be watered down pumpkin puree if you want, or you can use pumpkin puree, that's totally fine. And just mix that in until you get it to a point where it's nice and wet and doughy. Again, adding a little bit more as you go. I always like starting with about 1.5 cups of liquid to my 3.5 cups of flour, and then mixing in what I need extra from there. That way I get the perfect consistency, because climate can change, humidity can change, your dough can be a little bit more thirsty, or it could be a little bit more wet. So I find that I can control the outcome better this way. And now this is where I want it. So I'm going to go ahead and add in my salt, so 2 teaspoons of salt, and then I'm going to give that a good mix. And you can see that all of the floury bits are now incorporated with the dough, and it's more on the gooey side. Don't worry, this is going to get better as we start doing our stretch and folds and building that gluten. Now I'm just using my bench scraper to go ahead and scrape the sides, and we're just going to kind of work the dough a little bit. I'm just going ahead and scooping the dough from the bottom onto the top and rotating the bowl as I go. Doing this for a couple of minutes will help building the gluten before you let it rest. And now cover with a damp kitchen towel and let it rest for an hour. Once it's done resting, we're going to go do our first set of stretch and folds, and then from here we're going to do about 3 more every 30 minutes. And now just go ahead and grab your bench scraper, and we're just going to work that dough again, scooping the bottom of the dough to the top and rotating the bowl as you go. Doing this for about 1 to 2 minutes, just kind of working that dough and again helping to build the gluten. This process also helps the really sticky doughs become less sticky. We're now on our last set of stretch and fold, so we're going to go ahead and complete that and work that dough one more time. And you can see with the stretches and folds in the end, the gluten is really fighting back, and it's definitely less sticky than it was before. And now that we've completed that last set, we're going to go ahead and transfer this into another dish so we can watch it rise. I really love these straight-sided plastic containers because I can see exactly how much my dough has risen, and I just mark it and then watch it from there. Cover that with your damp kitchen towel and set it aside and let it rise at least 50 to 75%. And here we are at its rise, and you can see we're at 50% here. So now it's time to go ahead and shape. Because this is a sticky dough, I'm just going ahead and flouring my surface because I know it's going to stick a little bit to my countertop, so I want to give it less chance to get really stuck on my countertop. So just a little flour. And I don't have the patience to let it just fall out, so I am just kind of easing it out of the container. And now we're just going to go ahead and shape that into a rectangle. I'm just going to go ahead and sprinkle this again with some pumpkin spice because sourdough has strong flavors, and as it sits and ferments in the fridge, it will overtake the flavors that you add. So the more flavor, the better. We're going to just fold this over in a third and sprinkle again. And then roll this into like a hot dog shape and sprinkle again and shape into your ball. And now we're just going to go ahead and build some tension in our dough. So we're going to push and pull that dough, pushing it away and pulling it back, tucking in the end as you pull it back toward you. This is going to help keep it into a nice tight sourdough ball, or as they call it, a boule. Next, we're going to just line a bowl that will fit your boule with a tea towel, and then you're going to go ahead and flour that generously so your dough does not stick to the towel. And I also like to sprinkle my dough just with a little extra flour on all sides. We're going to go ahead and flip that dough so the floured side is down and the rough side is up, and clean up as you go, of course. And then we're just taking our dough here and we're going to take each side and kind of pinch them together to help again to form that tension and keep it nice and tight. Cover the dough up, and then you're going to add some plastic wrap to keep it from drying out. Put in the fridge overnight or up to 24 hours. So the dough has been in the fridge for at least 12 hours. We're going to take it out and we're ready to bake. I always like to put my dough in the freezer for about 30 minutes while the oven is warming up. And here I just have some butcher twine we're going to lay out and crisscross. I always like to cut my strings about 12 to 14 inches, sometimes longer, just because I want to make sure I have enough, and I don't have room to mess up here, so I want to make sure I have enough string to go around my bread. Now that we have our strings laid out, we're going to go ahead and put our rough side of the bread down on the string and then brush off any excess flour, just rubbing it into the sides, and then take the twine and go ahead and tie that into a knot. You want to make sure each knot is met in the middle. And then just go ahead and cut all of the string off right down on top of the knot. And now we're going to go ahead and score the dough. And here you can get creative if you want. I'm just doing some wheat stalks every other section. And really with this pumpkin loaf, you don't even have to necessarily score the dough. You can just let it be a pumpkin design. It's totally up to you. And then on the empty section, I'm just doing lines like you would find on a pumpkin. Once I'm done scoring my bread, I'm going to bake in a Dutch oven in a preheated oven and preheated Dutch oven at 500 degrees for about 15 to 20 minutes. And then I'm going to drop that temperature down to about 475 and bake until the internal temperature is 200 degrees. I want to make sure I don't get it too brown, so I don't like to bake uncovered, and this will get the bread nice and brown and the temperature right without overcooking it. And now that it's done, it'll look like this, and you can let it cool for an hour or two. Enjoy with some homemade pumpkin butter, and until next time, happy baking. Bye.